Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another episode of our WCN Author Spotlight. And today we're visiting with Alfredo Botello. Alfredo, we're just kind of getting to know each other, but you have a bar, then I want to come for a drink in your bar out in the Bay Area. What's up with that? Tell us about your bar before we get into your book.
Right. Well, you might need a drink at the bar once you get into the book and get into those stories. So I almost as a kind of sideline, I've had bars in my life for 24 years, and I began with 2 dive bars in downtown Oakland. And the idea was not that I wanted to be a bartender. In fact, I've never bartended in my 24 years. I wanted something that would supplement my income. I'm also a screenwriter, and that's my passion. But screenwriting is feast or famine. And right. I felt like, well, the bars, a friend of mine said, listen, we don't even have to open until 4 p.m. And I'm a morning writer. And I thought at the time I had a 9-to-5 job in architecture. So my best hours were devoted to architecture, which I love, but ultimately realized I don't think it was the right fit for me. I'm more like an appreciator. I love architecture. I just don't want to do it. I just don't think I'm good enough. However, it gave me the time to do the writing. And that's how I ended up owning bars. And post-COVID, I'm now down to one place. It's called Little Bird Bar in Oakland. We've cleaned up the bathrooms. It's not quite as divey as before because I think sort of our original crunchy punk rock crowd, unfortunately, has been priced out of Oakland, or they grew up and had kids in the last 20 years. So now we're actually making, now the bathroom is clean enough. I wouldn't be embarrassed to take my German mom there. And, she is very specific about what bathroom is okay. So it's now it's a nice cocktail bar. I'm a music freak, so I still curate the music playlists. But that's kind of how that happened. It was really a vehicle to support the writing when screenwriting was lean.
And I think that, there a lot of the screenwriters and novelists and authors like yourself, they're always doing things that are creative. And you've done something very creative by writing your second book. Congratulations. Isn't it great to have that book in your hand when it's published, that you get that first copy and say, look what I've accomplished.
When I first pulled it out of the box, I smelled it. I flipped through it. I tucked it into my shirt for a while. There's nothing. See, the same thing with music. Of course, there's Spotify. I still have all my vinyl. I like to pull the record out of the sleeve. I like to read the liner notes on the backside. And the same with the book. I like to flip it over, feel its heft in my hands.
You want to have it in your hands.
Yeah, it's very special, and I'm very lucky and privileged to be in that position. Yeah.
Yeah, and your second novel, Spin Cycle: Notes from a Reluctant Caregiver, was just recently published, and I get the privilege of talking to folks like yourself who share their caregiving story, because it's not only cathartic to share the story, but it's so helpful for those who come after us in our caregiving experience to be able to read and feel like that author is speaking right to them. So why don't you tell our listeners and our viewers a little bit about your caregiving experience and why you wrote the book?
Sure. I was really compelled to write this book, and I mean that in that it's the book I wish I had 5 or 6 years ago when my mom Lisa, was first diagnosed with likely onset Alzheimer's. I felt overwhelmed, blindsided, very much alone, and I didn't know what to do with my emotions. I didn't know what was happening. The changes were so drastic. Thing you need to know about my mom is in the 70s, after she and my dad divorced, she was just this kick-ass single mom. She went out there, she was taking belly dancing lessons. She was going to Toastmasters, even though she didn't really need to do any public speaking. She just wanted to speak a little better. She's a first-generation immigrant. Maybe that's why, I don't know. To put me through private school, there was a spell there where when she wasn't doing her day job at IBM as kind of an administrator, at night for a while, I remember we were at some posh tennis club where her job was to hand out towels to people coming in to play tennis. So this is basically an amazing person. And then suddenly, all that independence, all that go was changing. She would look at the document, which really organized her entire life, which was the paper calendar on the fridge. And she would have all the appointments written down: nail salon, doctor, visit a friend. And suddenly she would look at her own writing and couldn't make sense of it. Like, what day is it happening on? Did I cross this out? Why did I cross this out? What does this arrow mean? Same with her meds. Suddenly the meds became difficult. And I didn't understand. Like, this is my mom. So when she would say, I remember her exact words were, and my nickname to her is Chato. She would, Chato, I can't get it together. And at that moment, I wish what I could have said was, Mom, it's okay. I mean, well, look, we'll make it a little simpler. Maybe we can, maybe we'll do a Post-it per each day. Don't worry about the calendar. It's not the end of the world. But I didn't. I was like, what is wrong with you?
What is wrong?
That tone, if not harsher. I'm probably giving myself a pass in how I'm telling it to you right now. But I was not soft or kind, and I felt very ashamed at my frustration, my impatience. This woman who had done everything for me, and I was repaying it by being a jerk. And so I really felt awful. And as the 5 years progressed, and I got to know a little bit more about what was happening with Mom, and tried in my own way, baby steps to be a little bit more understanding. And we can talk about that in a minute. But I realized that for me, and this goes beyond just the question of Mom and so on. When I read a book or listen to a song, look at a painting, whatever your thing is, and I feel like the creator of that work is being really honest and not sugarcoating, I feel comfort. It's a comforting feeling, because we all have those human foibles, from, I don't know, lying about rolling a red light to picking our nose. Pick your little thing. It doesn't matter. But we all do it. But when someone actually says it out loud and it's okay, it's like that little bit of vulnerability. I feel connected, and I instantly feel comforted. I don't need the solution. I just need to know I'm not alone. So this book, if I had to sort of say, why did you write it? You are not, 4 words, you are not alone in your emotions. And there's people like yourself, like others who are in this field who, this is probably all old hat to, but for somebody who suddenly finds themselves in the role of caregiver, never planned on it, never knew it was going to happen, I wish I'd had a little bit of emotional comfort. So I chose to write this book in that exact hope that you won't feel alone, and you realize you're not the worst person out there. There's other people.
I'm going to ask you my pat question that I've asked all my guests through my over 500 different podcasts in and around caregiving. Have you met anyone that's had caregiving on their bucket list of things to do in life?
No.
It's an unplanned event. And we get thrown into it when we least expect it. And that's why, there's no strangers when it comes to caregiving. That's why folks like us who are just meeting in one sense really know each other. We understand the story. We understand the journey. And it is cathartic to share one's experience, because we know, just as you just so eloquently put it, you didn't have this information while you're in the midst of watching your mom change in the middle of everyday life. Where can you turn to? And now you're giving back to the community by sharing your experience. And that's one of the beautiful things about what we do.
Right. And I feel 100% the same way. For me, it's the emotional component of it. So when I did start to poke around, and I found there were maybe an occasional memoir or some kind of very practical, almost bullet point, how to be a caregiver and do this thing. The part that was for me missing was just the emotional turmoil. I call it the spin cycle for a reason, because that's how it feels to me. So I wanted to address that. And the reason I did it in fiction and not a memoir is that I felt I could render not just my own personal experience, which certainly is tucked in there in many ways, but also I wanted to approach and see how many facets of the caregiving experience and how it feels through maybe 9 or 10 different characters who are very different. Some are religious, some are not religious, some are great with some are already kind of great with their parents, some are not so great. I mean, they're all in there for a reason. They all feel bad and want to get better. But again, it's kind of like it's the group thing. If we all get in a room and talk about these vulnerable, tough issues, I've yet to experience a situation where when you do open up a little bit, somebody whacks you with a hammer and says, don't talk about that. Mostly people are very receptive. The first thing they say is, oh, you feel the same way. Great, let's talk.
Yeah, I just come back to that word cathartic, because 15 years ago when my partner was diagnosed with esophageal cancer, even though I had a background in social work and I thought I knew some of the things of what to do, but the emotional component when you're dealing with it, especially when it's you're a loved one, it puts a whole other picture to the process. And I'm curious to know, as you went through this with your mom, you know, recognizing that something was different about her, what her routine had changed, or what triggered you to realize that maybe something was different, and how long did it take you to realize that something was different?
It took me, I think, a year or two really of sort of being in it, because at first I kind of went to the go-to that I think most people do and say, oh, it's senior moments, something like that, And there was, though, there was an acute trigger point when that I see very clearly looking back, and that is that my stepdad, her husband, attempted suicide twice.
Oh,
I was,
goodness.
yeah. Well, he was very ill. He was 89. His kidneys were failing. He was on dialysis 4 and then 5 times a week. And he had been a man who really, he loved the arts. He tried things. For a while, he wrote poetry. I still have one of his paintings. He did a New York kind of cityscape that I keep in my little office here. He loved old film noir, but there was a point where all of that, he had kind of gone through it, and he was ready to go. But he was also a man of few words, so he didn't convey to me too much what was going on. But I remember him saying before the suicide attempts, kind of in a cryptic way, like, "You will take care of your mom when I'm gone." And I thought that was so strange. I'm an only
Yeah.
child. Of course I'm going to take care. What do you mean take care of her? But I think in his own way, he was saying there's more than just her physical needs that I've been dealing with. And I just think that was his way of doing it. Anyway, I'm sure people are curious, and it is worth mentioning. So he attempted it with a suicide with pills and booze. Didn't get it quite right. The second time I came in, it was 1 in the morning, and I found him tipped over from his chair in the living room, some blood on the floor where he had hit his head. And finally, and this is something, uh, in addition to the word catharsis, compassion is the other
Mm.
huge umbrella
Oh,
word
yeah.
that comes to my mind when I think about my mom and myself and my stepdad. And I try with everybody. I mean, and by the way, I think we're all just works in progress. I don't speak from the mountaintop here. I'm not telling
Right.
anybody, oh,
No, we're on the
no,
same page. Yeah.
I'm whack-a-moling. I'm putting out the first fires first. But anyway, finally, because he didn't qualify for sort of the death with dignity process, and it would take too long, and so on. But he was ready to go. Finally, a compassionate nephrologist, the doctor said, "Listen, if he just stops dialysis, it'll be a week or two. He'll be gone." And it was actually in the end a beautiful thing, because he stopped dialysis, and the hospice nurse came. He wanted to be hated hospitals. So he was able to pass it home in a comfortable bed, and he was at peace. I mean, I could see in his face, he was feeling peaceful. Okay, so that's kind of the drama of everything that happened back then. But what came out of that was I realized my mom he had been doing his half of the work. I just couldn't see it. So
Right.
now she would be calling one of the tip-offs. She was calling 911 all the time because she thought her heart was racing. And the ambulance would show up once the fire department busted through the door. And by the time she got to the ER, the symptom was resolved if it had ever been there in the first place.
Right.
But she was so worried about her health, and I somehow she's already always kind of somewhat of an anxious person, so all this kind of escalated. And I think maybe my stepdad had talked her down when he was there, but when he was gone, that was gone. So I noticed that. I noticed not just I can't find my car keys, but getting a call from the greeter at Walmart, kind of worried and not knowing what to do, because I can hear my mom crying to his side because she couldn't find the car when I got there. So I was in a huff about it, like, "Mom, what do you?" I get up
Yeah.
there and the car is 50 feet away, and I'm like, "Mom, how could you not find it?" I wasn't sympathetic about it, and she said, "Well, he couldn't find it," meaning the greeter. But I'm like, "Mom, it's not his car. Why would he even know what to look for?" So again, I
Hmm.
wasn't soft and patient. I was irritated by this all. I would get
Right.
calls from the bank saying she was supposed to get a Lyft or an Uber, but she got into a stranger's car. Luckily, the stranger was nice enough to bring her back. And then I would get a call where she's saying they're not letting me leave the bank, like as if they're holding her hostage. So all of that was more than senior moments. This is just a small smattering of the little
Sure.
things that I mean, and some of it was kind of downright ridiculous and funny. I remember I had bought myself, I'm a creature of habit. Every morning, bagel, banana, like clockwork. So I was staying with my mom at the time, and I had bought some bananas. And I got up in the morning to get it, and I was like, they weren't there. And I'm like, did I really forget bananas? That's so unlike me. So I asked my mom, I go, Mom, and I didn't think she would know. I go, Mom, you wouldn't have seen my bananas. And she said very calmly, she goes, oh, sure, I put them in my bedroom. They ripen better. And I just loved it. I kind of laughed. It was one of those, I think is one thing, I do try to bring this out in the book. If you can find the room in it, if you can kind of get past the rigidity or the uptightness that you might feel around being a caregiver and the hard parts, there is some great absurdist humor going on, which is like,
Yes.
and for all I know, she's right. Maybe the bananas do ripen better in the bedroom, but that's not the point. The point is I thought it was hilarious. And there are those moments that I think, there is that tendency to see it's all doom and gloom, but it's not all doom and
Right.
gloom. Some of it is kind of funny and interesting. And uh, so anyway, those were the triggers, especially after my stepdad passed, that really let me know that something bigger was going on until I finally took her to the doctor and got the diagnosis.
And I wanted to touch on what you just said about the humor. Oftentimes, oftentimes we don't see the humor until after the caregiving experience has ended, and then we have an opportunity to kind of reflect on the experience. And everybody, just like caregiving is, middle of caregiving is different, life after caregiving is different for everyone. But as I've learned over the years, not only from my experience and talking to folks like yourself, we realize that when we have time to reflect on it, that in most cases the good times far outweighed the bad times. It's just while we were in the middle of it, the bad times were just so intense, and then some of those memories come up that reaffirm those good times. And that's what that's what I've lived on, and that's what I encourage everybody that's in aftercare. Think about those good times, because there are some good moments and laughter that come in that is good to focus on, especially in life after caregiving.
I agree. And I think, I'm still in the middle of it. I'm actually probably really realistically toward the beginning of it. And I try, again, don't always succeed, but I try, because I think what you're kind of getting at too, Chris, in a way, is to be able to see the humor in it. Yes, afterwards, but maybe even in the moment.
In the moment.
It requires you to
Yeah.
be in the moment and actually to
Yeah.
drop away stuff. And I'm not some Buddhist master who's managed, to drop aside rumination and anxiety and all those things that clutter my brain, which they do all the time. I'm a Virgo, you can't help it. But once in a while, my mom, this is the great thing, is like my mom forces me to kind of shift my perspective. And I'll
Right.
just tell you, it's just part of our routine. So what she loves is to go to Starbucks for a decaf latte. This just makes her day. The outing, getting out makes it. She loves the smell of it, and I get that. I mean, it's we all. I think those of us in the caregiving experience all see how the primary joys: food, smell, music, color, all those
Yeah.
things. Even if language and logic starts to slip, those things are so primary. They stick around, and so we go to Starbucks, and if some young mom comes in with a baby or toddler, my mom pops up on her walker and makes a beeline to go gush over the baby or the toddler. And she'll just sit there and wave at the baby and smile. And the first time it happened, I was a little bit embarrassed, like, because I could tell she was kind of overstaying her welcome, because she no longer had the filter to say, okay, it's socially acceptable
Right.
to say hi, but then really you should give them their space. But the
Mm.
beautiful thing is, and here's where actually I would even say I'm learning a few things. People, to a person, I've yet to see anybody react differently. They intuit something's going on with mom, and they just
Right.
get it immediately. And if mom wants to stay and gush for an extra 15, 20, 30 seconds, they're fine. No one acts put out. I just love that. These to me are the moments where it feels like there's hope for humanity, where you meet a stranger
Yes.
who just gets it and understands something that your mom is just loving. Nothing as beautiful and pure as a little kid.
Mm-hmm.
And in that moment, I'm sort of there, and I'm just there. Maybe I'm just there, kind of watching my mom, but I'm actually thinking, oh yeah, I have two grown sons, and I remember when they were little, and I really love those times, and they go too fast. And so mom kind of has forced me in some times to kind of slow down and just be there, be there. The same thing if she sees, if we go out and there's a beautiful flower in a pot just somewhere, she'll stop and really stare at it for a minute. And the old saying is, what, stop and smell the daisies or smell the flowers? Like, she actually does that. She stops and she looks and she smells, and that forces me to stop. And so I'm actually learning. There's things to be learned. I guess what I'm saying is, here's I think what I'm really getting at is that I think I initially felt like, dementia is a problem. Problems need to be solved. How do you fix mom? What can I do to fix mom? Is it going to be calendars? Is it going to be that little check sheet I made for her daily meds? Take your metoprolol, you check that off. Take your diltiazem,
Right.
you check that off. I'm fixing that problem. But in the end, I think, no, it's not. She's not broken. That's the problem. She's different, but she's not
Just
broken.
broke it right.
Yeah, that takes a
Mm-hmm.
long time, and even I'm still working on it. I still get short tempered and all that. Or when she repeats herself or repeats a request over and over, it makes me nuts.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that was kind of a big aha moment, which is, wait a minute, like, I claimed, for example, to want to be in the moment more and not to be so, distracted, and she's actually doing it. So she's doing what I claim I want. She's ahead of me on the curve. So, anyways, I do think
It's
there's
amazing.
sometimes you learn stuff, and sometimes it comes in, like we said just a minute ago, in humorous forms, like with the bananas, or
Yeah.
my mom does all kinds of funny stuff.
I had one of the most profound things said to me by a guest a few years ago. We've been dealing with some dementia with my siblings and trying to help my nieces and nephews. And again, very privileged to be able to talk to folks across the country that know a lot more about this than I do. And it actually was Judy Cornish from the Dawn Method. She had said to me, why do people continue to try to reason with someone that has lost their sense of reasoning? It just, I mean, that was one of the most profound things that I've ever heard about how us as caregivers trying to help our care, again, the generic term, our care partner. And, I mean, we have to how do we understand that person, why they might look the same, they're really not the person that we once knew. And that was just so profound the way she said it to me.
Well, let's have a little Judy Cornish celebration party.
Yes, I knew you said I had a little inside information. So,
Yeah, so it was a great. It's a great experience. So while I was still writing the book, it was in draft form. I was kind of blindly emailing a couple people whose books I liked, whose attitude I liked, and I had read one of Judy's books, and I liked what she had to say. It all rang true. It all was kind of great. And she responded, and she gave me her time. We had, I want to say, 2 or 3 Zoom calls, and I consider her a co-editor on the book because she
yeah,
read a rough manuscript. She made gentle suggestions. She respected what I was doing, but she also, as an expert, said, I don't think this scene would quite play out that way. It's not quite realistic. And it
mhm,
was great. And I do remember she said words to the effect that you just said, and it all came down to, and it was such an aha moment too. We're putting the wrong expectations on people sometimes. Like, if
right,
I have a 2-year-old toddler, I'm not
right,
expecting them to do my taxes or figure out, calculus. If they eat, sleep, and go to, and that's about it. They've met my expectation. So
hmm,
why would I have? And that's fine. So why am I being fair and appropriate with the toddler, but not with my mom, who is changing? And this,
hmm.
so Judy put that in, of course, excellent perspective, as she did for you as well. And again, all glory and honor. And she was a huge help on this. And yes.
I actually just had a great visit with her yesterday afternoon.
Oh, really?
So,
Oh, great.
yeah.
Great.
So
Yeah.
again, it's another one of those 6 degrees of separation. In one sense, we're kind of all connected. So,
Yeah, yeah, we are.
yeah. So, Alfredo, if what what would you say today to a new caregiver that you wish you would have had somebody said to you when you were first starting out?
Be ready to enter their reality. This is the biggest thing that I wish I had been told. It's easier said than done, of course, but that to me is another way of saying try to work on the compassion aspect of really being in another person's space.
Mm-hmm.
And I liken it to, and so in other words, if my mom, and she sometimes will call me Joe. Joe's her brother who passed away 30 or so years ago. Well, I can correct her. You know, she's wrong. He died. And in the early days, I would correct her. But she just would look confused. And it took me a while as I would make these corrections, not just about the brother. She might get something else wrong. She might forget that, no, just 2 days ago, I took you to get your nails done. We don't need to get them done again. And if she didn't remember, she just looked confused. And so it was a empty victory. Like, oh yes, I pointed out the facts, but to what end? Did it improve today? Do I feel better? No, I kind of feel angry and uptight. Does mom feel better? No, obviously she doesn't. She looks a little bit lost and confused and probably embarrassed a little bit because she has plenty of moments of self-awareness where I think she knows she knows something's is different.
They know something. They
right.
do
So
know something's up.
They're not rag dolls. They're human beings, and they have moments where they know it's something different, and that's hard enough. So for me to just kind of win a useless argument, let it go. So entering her reality means if she says, "Oh, I think Uncle Joe," if she calls me Uncle Joe or says something like "Uncle Joe's going to be visiting today," I'm like, "Oh, well, great. I'll be happy to see him." And I know now, it took me years, but I know now that chances are we're going to get on to a different topic, and she'll probably forget about that, or she won't at least be really maybe expecting him in 5 minutes to walk through the door. And if she mentions it again, I'll say, let me check on that. I'll give him a call.
Yeah.
Sure, it's a little kind of lie, but it's not really. It's more about why have a fight here? It makes no sense. And I realized, and this was another aha moment for me. My older son played football in high school, and I wasn't a sports guy. I was more like a theater guy who made fun of the jocks. I was kind of a jerk, but that was his thing. And we had stuff to connect on. We both love sushi. We both love the older heavy metal, but the older they get, the more you're struggling to find any common ground. So he loved football. He played it freshman through senior year. So I found myself volunteering for the Snack Shack, first selling snacks. And then I think I got more or less promoted to being on the chain gang. I didn't even know what a chain gang was. I thought chain gang was an old time prison thing. But no, it turns out you move the chains for every set of new downs. So I got to be right on the field, and all I needed to do was count 2 or 3 yards and move the chains forward. But the point was, even though I wasn't a super fan of football, I was entering his reality to connect with him. It's no different. It's no different at all. And it was so great. And it's funny that now he's kind of moved on and he's doing his life, but I still watch the 49ers. I still hate the Broncos. I'm not sure why. I just know I'm supposed to hate them. So he developed this thing, but that was just because it's all about connection, right? Compassion and connection.
It's all about connection,
right? So I wanted to connect with my kid. So it's no different than if I want to connect with mom. Okay, let's talk about Uncle Joe, or let's look over. I mean, one go-to is I get old photos. I put them on my laptop. I spin it around so she can look at them and say, "Oh, I remember so and so," because the older memories are more intact. And then we can maybe reminisce about when I was a kid and we had a birthday party and I got to ride the ponies, which I did in Griffith Park, stuff like that. And I can see that it doesn't make her sad, like, oh, time's passing, I can't be young again, which is kind of maybe like my head went there at first. But no, she's just happy she's like, oh, basically what she's saying is we had a good life. We have a good life. And these little reminders, they connect us again. So it softens me. It makes her happy. And then I realized the hypocrisy of not wanting to do it initially because I did it with my own son during football. So I think it's a universal human craving.
We're always learning new things and new ways to communicate. And you are certainly communicating to the caregiving community about your experience and helping so many folks that are coming behind us in the care space, because everybody is going to need a caregiver as we move forward. And you're a good son.
I try. On my good days, on my good days I am, so I try. But hey, and then the other thing is Hershey's Kisses and Ferraro chocolate balls. My mom's sweet tooth from childhood has come back raging, and I love it. She doesn't care how much she eats. She used to be very conscious of her figure when I was growing up. Now she's still small as a bird, but man, much chocolate as she wants, I'm happy to get it for her.
Carefree. So, Alfredo, let all of our viewers and listeners know where they can purchase the book and how they can get in contact with you.
Sure. So you could look it up straight up on Amazon. Again, the title of the book is Spin Cycle: Notes from a Reluctant Caregiver by me, Alfredo Botello. I also have a website. You can get it that way too. And the website, I recommend it for people who want to know a little bit more maybe about the background of me and the book. So I wanted to make it a little bit less dry than some author websites. So for example, I have 20 years of bar DJ flyers because I'm an aesthetic person. I love, art is my religion, painting. There's playlists. I said I'm a music freak, so you can either agree with me or agree with me that my music is great. So I've got all kinds of different genre playlists. And then in terms of the book, yes, you can get a synopsis of it. You can read some things that people have said about it. There's another book I participated in called Wellness Through Words, which is an anthology of all different voices talking about wellness. And in it, that's a direct personal essay about my mom. It's not fictional. It's a nonfiction, one little chapter, if you're interested, about, an anecdote with me and mom. And all of that is to be found on my website, and it's called alfredobotello.com. So that's it. ALFREDO, B as in boy, OTELLO.com. And you can just click on, and then that also you can see my first novel if you're interested in looking at some other things I've written, also some screenplay synopses. I try to kind of make it a little bit of a decent picture of who I am and my work. So, you can do it that way too. So Amazon directly or through my websites, you can just click on the cover. It'll send you to a place to buy it. And I'm happy to report, no matter how you like your stories, audiobook, ebook, softcover, hardcover, all four are available. So whatever floats your boat.
And we'll have all of Alfredo's contact information and links in the show notes and on our WCN new authors page that should be debuting in about six weeks. But Alfredo, I have a feeling we're going to do a few more of these down the road. What do you think?
I'd love to. I've become a zealot about this just because, again, I felt alone. And if one stray person happens to stumble on one of these podcasts where they hear that somebody else felt that they were not the best and could have been better and wish they had a comforting voice, then I've kind of done my job. So I'd be happy to come on. And again, I feel like a revival tent preacher up here saying, we're all going to be in this. Because you're right. We're all going to be, dementia or no dementia, everyone's living longer.
We're all going to need help.
You're going to be a caregiver to somebody. And this is a universal thing.
That's Alfredo Botello. I'm Christopher MacLellan from the Whole Care Network. We'll see you for another episode of our WCN Author Spotlight soon. Thanks for joining us today.